is that we can joke around and be friends with each other for 5-6 years, and suddenly when you become a female, jokes can't be made anymore. What
Dude, I've always been a fucking female. It's not suddenly.
Well, like, even then, I bust Ashley's balls all the time, and she busts my shit. She knows I'm short as shit. I got a little ass.
Do you not see the point here, though, Jesse? Literally, you go ahead and you stop halfway.
You start doing some freaky ass shit. I have to go to bed in my own house, locking my damn bedroom doors.
Okay, now you're trying to play that.
Instead of fucking worrying and that you think I'm losing my goddamn mind because I'd rather have a fake vagina, in your words, than a Tesla.
A word from Boogie2988, who also...
I just wanted to film a little...
Boogie! but this is...
What you disrespected Boogie for?
I mean, really? Okay, here comes Boogie.
Salvo.
Come on.
I just want to let the folks on Storyfire know that Khaleesi's got a great pussy. And I just saw it, and I think it's fantastic. A+.
That's why he sees the joke as transphobia.
Who's he?
Excuse She.
Oh, gotcha, right.
She.
Yeah. Look, people leaking text messages and all this other shit.
On the 4th of October, Emily Saxton tweeted out a section of a live stream which went on to get over 56,000 views across the next week, and it started what would be a very short, very pathetic blip of drama that rocked a relatively small part of the YouTube community for, well, about 48 hours or so, and then no one cared. It did, however, lead me down a rather odd little rabbit hole, so let's go together. Emily Saxton, who was born as Jeffrey Saxton, is better known to the majority of the internet audience as being Swift UAV, or Swift for short. They first began their rise to a small level of YouTube prominence of about 145,000 subs by collaborating with Jesse Ridgway, who would be better known to many of you as McJuggerNuggets. This was done during a video called Crashing a Fan's Drone in 2016. A separate video covering many of the same points, but from Swift's point of view, was also released side by side on Swift's channel at the same time. The two would go on to collaborate for years, on and off, with Swift either acting as a character in the show or as a camera operator for Jesse. Swift would often disappear from Jesse's content for periods of time, either due to quitting, being fired, or leaving production a few different times, but always returned to work for Jesse once more. In December 2019, Swift released a video coming out as transgender, and at that time, Jesse also released a video where he reacted to it on the same day on his own channel. The two apparently remained friends after this for a short while, before falling out sometime at the start of 2022. Emily's style of content closely mirrored Jesse's throughout the majority of her YouTube career, as she went on to collaborate with numerous members of Jesse's family and also his close friend group, including KidbehindaCamera and Boogie2988. Her videos were hit and miss of popularity, sometimes receiving only 1,000 or so views, whilst others could easily reach hundreds of thousands, but that was generally depending on if they were connected to Jesse or not. Emily's content recently is generally only breaking around 10,000 views per video, with the rare video gaining traction. However, this is usually when it's based around larger creators like MrBeast or KidBehindACamera. Emily's second channel is primarily based around her being transgender, with half of the content being in regards to the hate that she's received, such as a video complaining that an email she had received used her dead name. She hasn't uploaded to this channel in about 5 months, as these videos gained very little traction. Even on Reddit, her most recent posts are generally clickbaity threads regarding dead naming or misgendering. Jesse Ridgway, going by the alias of McJuggerNuggets, was best known for his Psycho series on YouTube, and was a creator who pioneered a style of YouTube that I could never really get interested in. Generally clickbaity, rage videos, the type that were rife at the start of YouTube, back when fans were more willing to believe that these explosive videos were real. This type of content, however, did prove to be wildly successful for him and for other creators using his style, such as KidBehindACamera with the Angry Grandpa Show, or Boogie2988 with his Francis videos. Jesse went on to receive around 2 billion views and 4.1 million subs on his primary account. However, as time went on, Jesse's account has slowly dropped in popularity, with videos often struggling to break 100,000 views. The main reasons for this would be enough for a video on their own, be it from the numerous controversies regarding his workers, which generally revolved around his content house known as Rigid House, his suspicious and often shady dealings with Storyfire, which was a rival company set up to try and take down YouTube, mainly for edgier content that Jesse was heavily involved with, or the revelation that his videos were fake, and really, people needed to be told that. Jesse's experienced the standard issue that many content creators face when their content is a fake personality, be it Boogie2988 and all of his recent drama, KidBehindACamera and his allegations of child abuse, or even someone as low as J Station who was faking his girlfriend's death for views. Eventually fans get to the point where the line between their jokes, their stage videos, and their real life drama all begins to blur together, so much so that people can't tell what is real anymore. And it's due to these issues that many fans were suspicious when Emily suddenly shared a clip from a livestream hosted by Ashley May, Jesse's girlfriend. The stream itself was titled Baking Applesauce Cookies Live, already hinting at the drama to come. During this stream, at approximately an hour and 21 minutes in, this exchange occurred between Ashley and Jesse, who was in the background.
I did start watching the how do you say it? Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah, that's it. Those few seconds were enough to kick off an entire drama that somehow led to the return of internet blood sports, that led to large content creators going to war over hookers, and led a dozen smaller content creators to charge in to be the most disorganized group of spurned exes I've ever seen since Scott Pilgrim. I have boosted the audio for that clip, but if you didn't hear, Ashley on camera states that she and Jesse had begun to watch the new Netflix series Jeffrey Something, and struggles to remember the surname, admittedly because she probably is the most vacuous human who's ever existed. Jesse off-screen decides to offer Jeffrey Dahmer. Ashley laughed briefly, and then they continued to mumble away for the next 20 or so minutes, and there was no reaction whatsoever in chat. Emily immediately went to Twitter, stating that someone had sent this to her and accused Jesse originally of dead-naming her. However, during this she also made quite a big stretch, and stated that Jesse had deliberately compared her to a serial killer who was known for skinning and eating gay men. This started the snowball rolling, and once the transphobia snowball starts on Twitter, it takes a hell of a man to derail it. But we do know such a man. Emily continued with her allegations, stating that Jesse had recently created a promotional video which included footage of her when she was at her most masculine. She confirmed in her tweets that she had previously defended Jesse for allegations of transphobia, but had stayed quiet for too long, and he had said very hurtful things to her during her transition. She said she was done being quiet about it, and then made no further allegations whatsoever. It would seem that this drama was done in about 5 jumbled tweets. Well, apart from the random 2 tweets she made with a nuclear symbol and World War III, which did come out immediately before she quote-unquote dropped the bombs. So either it was basically the most teenage Call of Duty gamertag announcement of the drama possible, or she was tweeting about Ukraine in the most mouth-breathing way possible. Honestly, having sat through her content, it could really be both. And the reaction of Twitter was swift, with a horde of generally irrelevant YouTubers rushing to show their support for Emily. KidbehindaCamera and his fiancée, Boogie2988, and about a dozen or so smaller creators. Even the Storyfire official Twitter account came out in support of Emily. To me though, a lot of this was white noise. I know of Boogie quite well, and I knew of Storyfire and KidbehindaCamera, but the smaller creators really didn't mean anything to me at this time. Michael Green, better known as KidbehindaCamera to many people, gained fame alongside his wife Bridget West, using a similar style of shocking family clickbait that Jesse had done with their show, The Angry Grandpa Show. Michael gained about 1.6 billion views and 4.7 million subscribers on the Angry Grandpa channel, whilst also gaining 1.5 billion views and 2.5 million subs on his own channel. Out of everyone involved in this drama, he is still the largest creator, often getting around 150,000 views per video on his own channel, and hundreds of thousands of views on The Grandpa Show, where, despite Grandpa having died nearly half a decade ago, Michael continues to post videos of him. This has caused a fair bit of drama for Michael, who was seen as monetizing a dead relative, which alongside other allegations such as child abuse against his own children due to their involvement in the pranks early on, and also his incredibly clickbaiting videos, which has caused his view count to rapidly decrease over the last year. Michael himself is an odd person in general, tweeting out about his child being sick whilst his fiancée will then spam photographs of their daughter looking as sad and sick as possible, or Michael also thirst posting on his main account while specifically mentioning his fiancée. It is something, I guess. The allegations against Michael were addressed in a sit-down interview with Boogie2988, the last of our large YouTubers. The interview, however, was widely criticised due to Boogie's softball questions, seemingly trying to lead Michael to more favourable answers whilst also making excuses for him, and also the general comparison to Boogie's own poor behaviour. I assume many of you watch me already, so you're probably viewers of my content and you know Boogie quite well, so I'll try and keep it a fairly brief summary of some of his bigger mess-ups. Shooting a gun in a school zone after challenging an internet troll to come to his house. Being accused of abuse by a sugar baby he had been paying to date him. Being distracted by his phone whilst driving, which then caused him to crash into a car with a family inside it, which then also led him to make up a story about a separate car crash to cover up for his own act, before then finally 3 years later admitting to being distracted, but somehow turning it into a story about how God had caused the crash to let him speak to him. faking several swatting attempts to his property to try and turn his audience against a subreddit that was being critical of him. Mocking the suicide of a fellow YouTuber named Etika, where he then attended VidCon a few weeks later, approaching numerous other content creators and telling them he was going to kill himself, as well as random fans and DM exchanges, and then he claimed he changed his mind because he got to experience illegal drugs for the first time. Asked his fans if they'd be interested in him attending Uvalde, Texas immediately after the school shooting to film some content around the memorial. I'll leave it there for now, but don't worry, there will be more stuff on Boogie coming out later on. This whole thing was an interesting drama though, since there didn't really seem to be an outright good guy, with a potentially transphobic comment from Jesse, who had a very coloured past, to Emily, who seemed to be reacting in as dramatic a way as possible, to both KidbehindaCamera and Boogie, who had been close friends with Jesse and Emily for years, collaborating many times until both of them fell out with Jesse a few years ago, and seemed to be using this as a reason to twist the knife. Both Michael and Boogie shared the original allegations and also took up arms for Emily, with Michael tweeting out full support for Emily, stating what a good person she was, and also arguing with randos for attempting to downplay it. Bridget also came forward with a fairly generic tweet that Emily deserved better. Boogie, on the other hand, did come in harder, stating that he had unfollowed Jesse because of this, but then quickly making the drama about himself. He of course does give praise to Emily as well, however also goes out of his way to make sure to tell Emily that she had talked to him in private about things, which I am sure she's aware of, but I'm glad Boogie reminded her publicly just so she knew. Boogie, however, points out to fans that he had been aware of Jesse's bad personality for years and kept his mouth shut for as long as possible. I'll cover this a lot more later on. He also received some pushback from mutual fans, reminding him how Jesse had supported him immensely, especially during his divorce, and a period in 2019 when Boogie stated he had intended to kill himself, but personally named Jesse as one of the reasons he didn't. Even with Boogie's vague tweets about knowing stuff in private and keeping his mouth shut about it, there appeared to be very little to the drama though still. Emily added some additional fuel to the fire though by retweeting a post by a creator named Shallow, also known as Riley. Riley had stepped forward to provide both a secret recording of DMs between Jesse, Ashley and himself, along with a public statement. The video places a conversation at around the beginning of December 2021, which was in the run-up to Emily's public announcement of her transition, where she apparently had some form of countdown running on her Twitter, which admittedly is a bit odd. The DMs open up though with a close-up picture of Emily's face, and the messages read: From Jesse, 12/19/21. What does it mean? The fact he's doing a Twitter countdown like Christmas is ridiculous. And the bio shit? Shallow. Lamau, yup. Jesse. Like, what the fuck? Nobody actually does this if it was a real thing. Ashley. Nope. Hype it up so everyone will think it's fake. Jesse. Yeah, and we're gonna have to deal with the repercussions. Really losing his mind then. And Shallow closes off the conversation with a, yep, I don't see it looking good. Despite this conversation apparently occurring nearly a full year ago, we were provided with a total of 9 messages, with Shallow appearing to be the last person to have typed, which does imply that he recorded it at the time, however decided to sit on the information. Shallow's public statement outlined that he had witnessed quote-unquote this behaviour whilst in the house, and that it was sad to see, and also confirmed that he'd been holding this evidence and only decided to show it because Emily had spoken out. He states that he had apologised to Emily for taking part in the conversation, stating that he was only going along with it because he's a fan of Jesse and he wanted to impress him. But then also weirdly stating that he had actually only done it because he's manipulated by Jesse into acting this way. Emily responded and shared the tweet, stating, when they never really supported you, seemingly surprised that they had not previously supported the transition, which is going to contradict later statements. To spoil a lot of this drama for you guys, this statement by Riley could really be like copied and pasted by nearly every person involved in the drama, with each often vaguely stating that they had seen bad things or knew of bad things, but decided not to react until this exact moment. Nearly a full day later, Jesse made his response online in video form with a 2-minute and 19-second video that can be generally summed up as the allegations are slanderous, that Swift could have and should have contacted him privately, and that the footage in the promo was standard look for Swift and that the fans knew Swift as that person. This was just a joke, and that he had helped Swift a lot, that they'd been friends for 6 years, and ultimately lost a joke together.
I mean, Swift watching this, you could have just hit me up privately, but of course you make it public and try to deplatform me after I've helped you with everything in your life and been one of your biggest supporters. So to do this is pretty fucked up. And the other people jumping in on the bandwagon, it's pretty fucked too, after I've always tried to do my best with everybody. But it was literally a joke. All in good fun. It's, boys will be boys, or how it was back then. Obviously she's transitioned now, and I've supported that. And Swift knows that. We've had a lot of conversations, and yes, it's been hard for me to grapple with, Jeff becoming Emily, But that is the reality of it. And we've had those conversations. I've never acted differently to Swift's face. I've actually told her, hey, I'm concerned about your mental health and going through with this and all this. But me saying Jeffrey Dahmer, Jeffrey Saxton, it's a joke because we've played into the bits over the videos for years. Oh, Swift's a serial killer. It wasn't about Jeffrey or the dead naming stuff. It was about a serial killer.
Jesse made no reference to the leaked DMs at all, but he did mention that other people were trying to bandwagon onto the issue. He stated that the dead naming was not in any way transphobic, and instead the joke was that Swift often played creepy serial killer-esque characters in his videos. The response was generally poorly received, with most people seemingly just upset that he hadn't apologised at the minimum, some stating that it cannot also be a joke because Emily was upset. Others, however, were happy to see Jesse stand up to what they were calling a woke bandwagon, and he was then moving on with his life now. Boogie's reaction to Jesse's response was wholly negative, wanting him to apologise to Emily, and also once more making reference to when all the truth comes to light and he is held accountable, he should remember this moment. Due to people saying Emily should have dealt with this privately, he compared this to his own drama from earlier this year with Ethan Klein from H00kers, which is really a terrible comparison and shows that Boogie did not in fact learn from that situation. For those unaware, his drama with Ethan from H00kers was that he had been publicly unhappy with Ethan for a while due to Ethan no longer responding to his DMs or inviting him on his podcast. When Ethan was suddenly hospitalised, however, Boogie posted a tweet stating that whilst he understood a lot of people didn't like Ethan, he hoped he'd be okay. Ethan went on to respond negatively for about a minute or so on his podcast, due to Boogie feeling the need to mention that many people did not like him before finally wishing him well. Boogie has since used that one public response to repeatedly bring up Ethan for about the past 6 months or so, often taking cheap shots anytime he can, including making numerous videos on him, criticising his weight in what is probably the most tone-deaf message I've ever experienced on the internet, and also somehow trying to imply that a child's life is harder just because Ethan is related to it. It's pretty clear that the situations are not in any way the same, since Boogie was the clear aggressor in his drama especially, and of course Boogie received a lot of pushback for this opinion. For many people, the drama will have reached its peak in a showdown that took place in the new Keemstar Show. This was the first live episode, and most of the first hour can be generously described as scuffed, but I'm sure many people would probably describe it as a total train wreck as the two tried to outline the drama. The two hosts, Keemstar and Salvo Pancakes, repeatedly snapped at each other, as Salvo argued most of the drama was exaggerated or fake, whilst Keemstar was more critical of Jesse. Throughout the stream, the chat were very much aware of Keem's negative relationship with Jesse, mainly due to numerous business issues relating to Storyfire that Jesse allegedly owned but Keem had been recruited to promote for. Due to this potential conflict of interest, it is something that I felt I needed to address. Now, whilst Keemstar does try his best to be as soft and gentle as possible with the entire situation, Keem is more known for the edgier content, so we did get a lot of this.
We can bring him up. Basically has now transgendered into Emily. So he was offended by that. I'm about to gender. I need friends. I need people who care about.
My favourite is his use of the word transgendering as a verb, which kind of always made me just picture this in my head every time he said it. The first hour of the podcast mainly covers the original allegation, Jesse's response to that, and then also introduces sound bites from 5 members who were involved. Emily provided the first video, which was not played fully on the podcast, however, I was able to gain access to this, along with 3 of the other videos. The video from Emily is something.
How about the time, Jess, when I fucking decided to cancel my Tesla pre-order, which I didn't tell anybody about why, except I posted a tweet like, hey, I'm canceling my Twitter. For reasons I knew, because A, I would not be able to afford the car
Did she
payments,
just
and
humble
B,
brag that she bought a Tesla in front of me? Is that relevant to the story here?
I did ask Emily to send me like 2 minutes of video. She sent me 10 minutes.
I mean, she had a lot.
Now, the fact that Jeffrey Dahmer killed and ate gay men, people are part of my LGBTQ plus community, and you compare me to that fucking monster.
Yep, facts.
It's just fucked.
Now, if the original tweet had been like a 3 in the stretch scale, this would be a solid 8 in my opinion, especially when you compare it to other complaints that she has later on. Now, this is where it comes in me saying she potentially has been overly dramatic and trying to exaggerate this, because I don't think anyone actually believed that he was implying that she is secretly a serial killer eating and skinning gay men. She confirms that Jesse had told people about her transition long before she had a chance to, and he was generally being disparaging about it, and then those people would come to her and tell her about it, but she would try and brush it off. This does seem to contradict her apparent surprise at Shallow's tweet where she had stated when they never really supported you, because it does seem that she knew about this long in advance. Emily also states,
and back in last October, you came down to my room, got into my head, manipulated me, gaslighted me into saying I should stop taking my medication. It's making me fat. Got into my head to the point to make me shave my fucking head. Something I genuinely regret to this day. How about the time, Jess, when I fucking decided to cancel my Tesla pre-order, which I didn't tell anybody about why, except I posted a tweet like, hey, I'm canceling my Twitter. For reasons I knew, because A, I would not be able to afford the car payments, and B, I wanted to take that money to put to eventually getting bottom surgery. And the fact that you came down to my room and said, let's talk about your transition again, and says fucking worrying, and that you think I'm losing my goddamn mind because I'd rather have a fake vagina, in your words, than a Tesla. You were my fucking best friend I would take a bullet for. And this is how I get fucking treated. The fact that when I was finally starting to become happy with who I was, and you put me in a dark depression again where I wanted to kill myself while I was living at your house.
Keemstar had also enlisted Kid Behind the Camera to provide a statement, which was the footage that unfortunately I wasn't able to locate. This is about a 5.5 minute clip, however there were only about 2.5 minutes played of it on stream.
And they said, what is the absolute worst thing that you could think of about Emily? Excuse me, Swift. What is the worst thing that you could think about Swift? And I said, I don't know. He's a P word. And Jesse said, worse. I don't know what could be worse than that, but he kept going and we had a little bit of a conversation.
Okay, pause it. He said a lot there. Do you want to break that down for the chat, Keem?
I think we should listen to what's worse than a P word.
Okay. I mean,
finally, Jesse told me that Emily is a transgender. I thought that this was a joke because, like, at the time, Jesse kept trying to go viral on Snapchat, so I thought he was making, like, a stupid joke for, like, people to... I really thought people were going to criticize him for it. I thought it was stupid. I thought that, like, if you're going to post this, like, you're going to get in a lot of crap for it, right? We made a lot of stupid responses back, like... I hate it. We said, like, oh, Swift's going to make an ugly woman. And I made a video where I kind of said the same thing to Jesse.
Keem, hold on a minute.
And it's one of those things where I've apologized for. Because at the time, I thought it was a joke. And I actually thought Emily was on the other side of the phone recording. I thought that... Gets me emotional.
No, it doesn't. I can't... No, it does not get him emotional. Keem...
The general response from Salvo to the statements is that they were exaggerated and overacted, which I do agree with. The main takeaway for me, though, once again, is that this mirrors so closely with Shallow's statement from the beginning, that Michael had been aware of this for at least 8 months, that he had also joked about it, and that he remained silent until suddenly coming forward to it now. The behaviour, though, is somewhat more believable, with his information that he had been making jokes because he had assumed that this was also a joke by Jesse with Emily being involved. Later on the podcast, however, he does state that he had joked back and forth with Jesse for months after this, and it is possible he had also been joking about Emily during this. Whilst Michael's clip wasn't finished and I didn't get access to the footage, Michael did take to Twitter during the stream and posted several tweets trying to confirm details that were excluded. No new real information was included, however Michael did confirm that he joked for more than one phone call, but states that this was because he was unaware it wasn't a joke still. The next soundbite is from Rugenus, someone who at this part of the story I was actually kind of aware of as being one of Jesse's long-running editors and cameramen who'd been fired unceremoniously around a year prior. However, he will be covered in more depth later on. His segment was also cut short by the podcast as only 32 seconds of 54 seconds were played. During the soundbite, Nick states that he had already known before Jesse that Emily was transitioning, and when Jesse was told, he immediately called Nick and said this.
Already knew Swift was transitioning prior to Swift telling Jesse, but when Swift told Jesse, Jesse called me and said that Swift has mental illness. Basically said that, you know, Jesse can easily talk Swift out of transitioning, and basically said that she's gonna look like a fat woman, a fat, ugly woman, and the pills are just gonna make her fatter. And also said, like, this is all for clout, this is just a phase, like, type of shit like that. It was real fucked up shit. He just straight up mentioned that there's no way in hell Emily could ever feel like she's a woman, and that it's fucking completely mental illness, and that she's fucked up in the brain, and that she needs to see someone. He would always behind the back talk about how weird she is. It's just so fucked up, dude.
The remainder of the footage that was played was pretty much the same thing, however coming across quite unnatural due to many jump cuts every few seconds. The fourth soundbite was from a man called Miguel or MigzFilms, who will also be mentioned more later on. His information for Keemstar, however, was also posted on Nick's channel.
Suspicious.
This video was also only partly played by the show, however during this Migz stated,
"But I told Emily multiple times what Jessie was saying behind her back. I wanted to tell the world how much of a piece of shit Jessie was, but it was never my story to tell, and it's still not my story to tell. I'm not gaining anything from this. I don't give a fuck. But Jessie can rot. He's a homophobic, transphobic piece of garbage, racist as fuck. The amount of times he said something about me being a fucking beaner,
This also does seem to contradict Emily out in surprise, and there is additional evidence for him coming forward about this much earlier on publicly, but I will get to that later on. The video does list some additional issues that Miguel experienced, such as stating that Jessie was both a racist directly to Miguel, and also stating that he was homophobic at times. He, however, doesn't provide exact examples of when or where this occurred during the video, and it also should be noted that Migz is a very close friend with Nick, who was fired at the same time. Migz seemingly taking this firing very poorly, as this seems to be the onus for him releasing all the information publicly nearly a year ago. Migz's video, however, didn't really add much information after they'd stopped playing it on stream, simply outlining that he was really sorry to Emily for the way things ended up between them, and that he also hated Jessie. The final soundbite came from Boogie.
A word from Boogie2988, who also...
I just wanted to film a little...
Boogie!
but this is...
What you disrespected Boogie for?
I mean, really? Okay,
Salva.
Here comes Boogie.
Salva.
Come on.
Where Michael had been on the edge of believability with his soundbite, Boogie decided to polish off his best actor Razzie.
I just wanted to film a little video here in support of Emily because I feel like it's really important that her message is heard here. And I want to talk a little bit about the history I have with Emily since she came out, but before that, her and I had been friends for years. She had shared with me her pain, her suicidal thoughts, her thoughts of self-harm, and we bonded over that.
Boogie, being the emotional wrecking ball that he is, somehow managed to talk equally about himself as he did Emily during this video, making sure to state how supportive he is of her, and also stating that they were able to bond because of suicidal feelings. He's heartbroken because of how vaguely mean Jessie has been, and how Jessie has been abusive and manipulative, and how he also experienced that firsthand, making sure to also throw a shot at Jessie's father during this whole thing. That might be relevant later. Throughout the nearly 2-minute video, Boogie provides no actual specific information of abuse against either himself or Emily. Of course, however, it's once again an example of someone who was well aware of the issues in the drama, however had decided to not react or make it public until a dozen other creators had. It was during this whole time period when the show felt its most scuffed, with generally lackluster evidence of the initial allegations online that could easily be stated to be overblown, which is something Salvo argued numerous times, whilst Keem generally argued that the straw that broke the camel's back was the joke about the serial killer. Emily's soundbite did provide additional information that did seem to be more believable, however due to the general nature of Emily, Jessie, Boogie, Michael, and pretty much everyone who's still to be introduced, it's incredibly hard to take them seriously even when they cry, due to their entire YouTube existence basically summing up as being fake on camera to try and trick gullible people into watching. Emily phoned in to join the conversation about an hour or so in, and generally still provided very little additional information at that time, but did give other hints of issues between herself and Jessie, such as...
It's not just shit you say to somebody, like saying, I'm afraid you're going to kill yourself in 5 years, or the fact that, like, your hormones are just going to make you fat. Like, yeah, no shit. I already know that I'm going to gain weight while I'm also trying to lose weight. Yeah, I mean, he's always made racist offhand remarks to people in general in the past.
Well, that's not good.
Again, there was no specific information provided, just that there were offhand racist comments. When later asked if there was anything else she wanted to add to the overall story, she said no and asked him if they could phone Kid Behind the Camera. This does seem weird when she stated in her soundbite that she had a full journal full of transphobic things Jessie had done to her, but then when asked for further details, she was unable to provide any. Kid Behind the Camera then did join the call for a short time, but he didn't really add anything extra to the call. He simply confirmed that there were no other times that he made jokes about Emily being transgender. As mentioned previously, he later stated it was possible he did joke about her more before him and Jessie stopped talking. It seemed the story was finished at this point, with Keem really just moving on to discuss Ethan Klein. The show, however, did perk up when Jessie ended up super chatting in and then was invited on the show. In terms of fairness, though, it does seem pretty scuffed that Jesse had to super chat $100 into the show before he was finally invited on.
You can be homophobic.
McJuggerNuggets, $100. I owe Keemstar money.
Thank you, McJuggerNuggets.
Hey, McJuggerNuggets, we all know based on his reaction right now.
No,
we all know
that is not why. That is not why. So I think you owe Emily an apology.
And after you give Emily an apology, you owe this guy his money back, McJuggerNuggets. And then he'll drop everything.
No. Stop running on that. It's not about that. It's not about that. Obviously, we're, the business shit, we're pissed off.
I'm mad.
It's about this. Like,
Emily was then invited onto the show, and we got a weird version of Internet Blood Sports. I don't really want to take away from the show, though, so if you want to see the full thing, which I would recommend, it goes from about 1 hour and 27 minutes in to about 2 hours and 14 minutes in. After that, Emily kind of just gets shoved aside, and Keem, Michael, and Jesse just talk about Storyfire instead. The confrontation between the two of them leaves both looking pretty bad, though. So much of it can be summed up as, well, I said that as a joke, and you laughed back then, so why is it now an issue? Really from both sides. I'll give you a few highlights here.
And then you said, let's have a talk about your transition, because I find it's very worrying that you'd rather have a fake vagina than a Tesla.
I never even said that, because I actually told you that buying a Tesla would have been stupid and to actually save your money.
Motherfucker, no, you didn't. You came into my room downstairs and you fucking said that to my face. Don't try to fucking lie and manipulate, because that's all you fucking built your career off of.
I leave the house and you start making inappropriate comments to my fucking girlfriend.
I asked her about her tank top because I was trying to figure out what kind it was so I could buy it. Smart for you to transition.
Go join the comedy class.
The fucking you're gonna end up
Get behind the camera with the fake tears and Boogie, and everyone's trying to put their bitter resentment, their personal problems towards me.
Pause, motherfucker. When was the last time you had a 1 million+ view video on YouTube? I've had 2 in the last few months. I've had a 4.2 million view video recently on Facebook. Attention. I'm pretty sure I'm getting more fucking views when I actually try than you are currently.
Why are you... Yeah, I appreciate it, Salvo. Good to meet you, man. And I liked how real you're being on the start of this podcast. I know Keem's playing the game, but I respect it. It is what it is. But I appreciate the candid nature. Yeah. So for everyone to act so holier than thou, and especially Boogie of all fucking people, the dude's had his foot in his fucking mouth every fucking day of the last 4 fucking years. So I really have no expectations from him. So for him to act like, oh, well, Jesse, what are you doing? And his videos sound like he was doing a fucking, he's preaching in front of the fucking church service. And he's had this different voice on fucking James Earl Jones that was trying to act like, I don't even know what the fuck. But yeah, it's all patronizing as shit. Right. So what's all the bullying examples that you supposedly know behind the scenes because you were there all the time, Keem?
I wasn't there. I just know about it.
Right. And you hear it from one side because you really don't talk to me at all.
Well, I'm sure in private conversations I've heard it directly from you, but I've heard it from Mike. I've heard it from, a little bit of everybody.
Well, Swift was a fan and was mostly there to get fucking views. And then now I haven't been able to serve a purpose for Swift. So now she can get a purpose out of me by talking shit and getting clout for it. Swift, all the people that you're currently friends with and trying to all do the hate bandwagon with, they all talk shit on you. They fucking hate your guts. Shit from my house. He's actually a fucking criminal, and I could press criminal charges on this guy.
On who?
Nick Rugenus.
Okay, one of the people that we played here.
One of the people. Another one, Miguel, fucking didn't pay rent to me for months, and then has a fucking hate boner because he fucking made mistakes. Sorry. Right, but all the real conversations we had to have, you understand why I would need to have those, because you're hitting on my girlfriend, you're trying to fuck me at different times.
I was not trying to hit on your girlfriend. What the actual fuck? No.
Despite this being an apparent 6-year friendship with equal amounts of friendship and abuse, there doesn't really seem to be very many examples from either side. Jesse is certainly the more charismatic person out of the two of them, but for a guy who just turned 30, he pretty much has the mental capacity of the boys on my under-15s rugby team when one of the guys came out as bi. Jesse suddenly is horrified and afraid of Emily, thinking she's going to try and sleep with him randomly, suddenly acting like a joke where she said she'll put estrogen in his food was a serious threat that terrified him. It's such an incredibly weak argument and so tone-deaf, especially when he's the one complaining about being nailed to the cross for what is more than likely a joke. But now, to try and win an argument with Emily, he's bringing up a 2-year-old joke and trying to pretend it was a serious threat. He also has 2 really serious fumbles in which he kind of falls on his ass in front of everyone. Firstly, when he tries to argue that he's a great ally to the trans community, but then really unironically brings in the 41% meme. The second fumble is when he's arguing about how it's extra hard for him to accept Emily as now being a girl due to her being such a guy because she was a volunteer firefighter, which really leaves him open to her shitting all over him about gender roles. It's two arguments that he probably could have brought in a much better way, but the way he brought them in, it's incredibly unsubtle. Emily, on the other hand, seems to repeatedly revert back to the same two stories over and over again, where Jesse yelled at her, once because she had jokingly insulted his brother during a celebration, which, ironically, she repeatedly used the argument, "It was just a joke, bro," with literally no self-realization. The second instance was when Jesse suddenly became very paranoid that she was trying to sleep with both him and also his girlfriend. Now, the problem is, Emily kept repeatedly falling back on, "and then you brought me to tears," which is weird because she's acting like that's the most grave offense that he did, which, compared to everything else, shouldn't really be the top of her priority list. Towards the end of the argument, it was pretty clear that Jesse had the upper hand, so much so that even Michael was saying that he was making good points. Emily, however, refused that entirely and pretty much just said it was all a manipulation tactic, and yeah, it was. It was very clearly manipulation from a very skilled manipulator. Emily, however, kind of shot herself in the foot though when she said these were only suddenly issues and being brought up now, which were very quickly disproven because Jesse had actually brought them up at the time, which she admitted herself. Both sides did come out looking pretty bad from the debate, with Jesse's paranoia and manipulation coming across pretty obviously to me, whilst Emily's own manipulation and her use of her mental health as a weapon and a shield also came across very clearly. The debate was stacked in Emily's favour, with her wanting Michael to be there to back her up and also Keem very clearly being on her side. Michael, however, didn't really contribute a huge amount, except to confirm his claim that Jesse had joked that transgenders are worse than pedophiles, which even later on he himself admitted was likely a joke made in bad taste. Michael, however, did confirm that he had heard the same story from both Nick and Emily in regards to Jesse being cruel about Emily's transition. However, the thing is, because Emily and Nick were not friends, they couldn't have told each other the story, which makes him say that he believes the story to actually be true. Now, that does back it up a lot. However, it also confirms that Nick was talking about Emily behind her back with Michael, which was an allegation Jesse had also made. Keem and Michael did seem to ease off Jesse a lot towards the end, and Emily was very quickly discarded to lead into the three of them discussing Storyfire's breakup. It didn't really factor into the story very much, so I won't cover it in detail, but I'll give my quick take on it just because it does factor into a few other little points. The biggest issue it seems around Jesse and Storyfire is that no one could really believe anything Jesse said, especially about Storyfire. People believed things that weren't true, and even at one point Keem pointed out that it wasn't just the fans he was misleading, it was also investors like Keemstar who'd been brought on to help the product. Jesse also introduced a mysterious character called Deckchair, who apparently swept in at last minute and bought out Storyfire when it was going bankrupt. However, this did seem to be part of a storyline on Jesse's channel, but also real in real life as well, which did blur the line. He claims he invested over $3 million into the product, however was then bought out for only $15,000, also claiming that he wasn't ever actually the owner of it, even though everyone thought he was. It's all over the place, and due to that, it's impossible to trust Jesse on anything he says, even about seemingly real-life things that he says are real-life things, like big business deals. And really, that's the problem I found with every member involved. These people's market on YouTube is manipulation. All of them. It's a little cluster of people whose entire bit is manipulating generally younger or seemingly vulnerable audiences. Be it Boogie's recent drama arc where he's actively manipulating his audience, posting a video with a clickbait title and a filter picture of him begging for help, even if it's only for a few dollars apparently, but then after successfully getting a lot of attention, probably more than he's had in a full year, he's now arguing that he never actually asked fans for donations and only wanted them to share the video and click the like button, but for only his extremely wealthy fans to maybe at best buy a t-shirt. To this day, Kid Behind the Camera is still posting videos where he's pretending to be assaulted by family members, leading to some fans who clearly don't understand the whole situation to try and find out and advise him to call the police. Jesse also is currently doing the manipulation tactic of, well, claiming to no longer manipulate people. As he repeatedly says in this podcast, he just doesn't care anymore and he's being honest and open about everything now. However, his most recent video on the 22nd of September is a fully acted and fully exaggerated video called McJuggerNuggets' Girlfriend is Furious Over Female Cameraman, based on the cameraman competition, which is something currently also going on in real life. However, it seems to be a storyline too, which is clearly acted, so his claims of being totally honest and open now and not like faking shit seems to be, well, fake. It's a manipulation thing. It's the same thing like Boogie will do every once in a while, where suddenly he'll say, I'm taking off the mask here, guys. I was playing a character, now I'm being real with you. And then a week later, he's acting the same way he did before that. So then you're not sure if the taking off the mask bit was the manipulation, or if everything else is. And that's what these people prey on. If you don't know what's real, you can't criticize them for doing something bad. The stream appeared to end positively enough with a boxing match being organised between Jesse and Emily, which is definitely never going to happen, as the gathered parties pretty much just all then give out final statements. Michael deleted the tweets he had to do with the incident. Emily posted up a final statement where she pretty much just reiterated that the whole thing wasn't actually a joke, that it was a deliberate dead naming and deliberately trying to say she was actually Jeffrey Dahmer, that she's not a bad person who've called him out, and that everything is bad and Jesse's just a manipulator. So we went exactly nowhere for the podcast. Jesse's final statement came out about 18 hours later, and it's a 3-page long manifesto, and it maybe took him about 300 words before his caps lock started working. It immediately broke right after he screamed respect and started working again for, again, subscribe to Jeff Saxton vlogs, World War III, clout, abused, thank you, and fuck off. Oh yeah, and it weirdly worked for like the last few sentences of the last paragraph, so I guess there's that. Reading it gave me a headache, so there's no fucking way I'm going to make you guys have to sit through it. Pretty much, the whole thing is just to say this is all a big, evil plan against him, everyone's ganging up on him, how the White Knights who ran in Protector aren't really any better than what they're claiming he is, but then also fumbling once again by arguing that her jokes against him are evil and mean, like when she called him Harvey Weinstein, and it's apparently worse than Dahmer. It's just dumb. The whole thing's dumb. Honestly, I hated reading it. I really, really hated reading it. It's just one of those things that's like total whiplash, where on the podcast, he's quite clearly spoken and a very skilled manipulator, but then when you ask him to write something down, it's like his 12-year-old nephew who watches too much hentai and 4chan decided to fucking write the message. His fans seem to like it though, with the vast majority of the responses being entirely positive, and quite a few actually being outright negative against Emily. Jesse wasn't done entirely yet. There is a wee bit more, but I'll get covered later on. But he was going out and offering to give help for investigations into Storyfire, and also randomly trying to poke the bear again with no real response. I don't disagree with his claims about people trying to piggyback on this as a cancellation attempt because, well, I told my subscribers that I wasn't sure if I should even include the hangers-on. You know, the tiny creators that barely made a blip on the radar for the whole overall narrative. But really, it was these people that kind of drew my attention to the shit show. My original script for this had me kind of working in chronological order through the whole thing. However, the problem was, you kind of would forget half the characters because so many of them are basically the same fucking person. You'll see why in a minute. Right at the start of the drama, I mentioned a man named Shallow. He'd been a member of the Rigid House and a part of McJuggerNuggets videos. His evidence of the leaked DMs was arguably the most damning evidence, but it was barely mentioned on the podcast at all and very quickly forgotten about. Despite being one of the key members involved in the Rigid House at the time of Emily's transition, he played a very small role in this overall drama. This appears to be due to him mainly already having burnt his bridges with the community, mainly because of early criticism of Storyfire as a platform at the start of this year. It appears he and some other creators came out hard against Storyfire, alleging that it was an elaborate crypto scheme, but when challenged for evidence, people would state that he instead just told them, "Oh, trust me, dude," or he would just block you. Shallow is basically the first of many examples throughout this entire fucking nightmare, as basically a spurned ex-girlfriend of McJuggerNuggets. Someone who had either worked with Jesse or idolized him, most of these people often having small YouTube accounts where they're trying to perform sketches and clickbait content in style of Jesse. With Shallow even trying to make a comeback recently on YouTube and even posting a fake out trailer for it to try and bait people into thinking it wasn't going to happen. Unfortunately, Shallow didn't just copy Jesse's video content. He also copied his grammar, but for him admittedly, his caps lock only came to life for the word bad as he vomited up his final statement on the issue after deleting the evidence he had posted. The final statement is kind of all over the place, with him complaining that people aren't taking him seriously, people aren't taking the issue seriously, and complaining that they're going to do a boxing match, basically. He said he deleted the evidence because no one cared about it anyway, so why keep it up? Which is something I understand, but entirely disagree with. You might as well keep it up for future's sake, especially if you truly do believe that Jesse's a homophobe and a transphobe and a racist and everything like that. I don't see a point in taking it down, you know? It kind of just seems to hurt your cause if you're withdrawing evidence. Shallow's only support seemed to be coming from a man called Devin Morris, a struggling YouTuber who idolized Jesse and made similar content to him. Devin was one of the people who came out alongside Shallow earlier this year to complain about Storyfire being a crypto scam. He, however, did get a lot more attention during this controversy, mainly because he immediately rushed to back up Emily and Riley and said that Jesse was a shitty person, horrible transphobe, and he heard lots of bad things about him. Devin begged fans to think critically and not just support Jesse because he was their childhood hero, and he did run back and forth between Twitter and also McJuggerNuggets subreddit, advising people that he had very incriminating DMs himself that showed Jesse was mean to both him and also Riley when he was volunteering for Storyfire. Of course, when he was actually asked to provide the DMs, he suddenly only had a single DM conversation, and the video he released when he was announcing the DMs coming out nearly came across as excited just to get a chance to throw a punch in, even stating that he was doing it because a lot of other people were doing it, and saying he had done numerous takes for it. The whole thing kind of came across as a wee bit weird.
What's up? This is like my 15th time recording this because I've never really made a Twitter video. I'm super tired. I'm about to go to bed, but I hopped out of bed for this. Basically, what I'm about to post below this is some screenshots I have of Jesse. Everyone's kind of fucking bagging on this fool right now, so I figured, this is the best time to kind of show my experience with this fool.
He then dumped the DMs in a tweet where he's also calling out Jesse and Ashley for coming into one of his stream chats apparently to insult both him and Riley after they had claimed that Storyfire was a crypto scheme. Which, well, yeah. I don't really know what you were expecting to happen, but, no shit, Sherlock, they would come and call you out. That kind of makes sense, doesn't it? The DMs themselves do generally look bad, though, and I'm not going to read every word. However, during the exchange between Devin and Jesse, Jesse does come off in a negative light. The long and short of the drama is that Shallow was one of the many small creators that Jesse had recruited over his YouTube career. These small creators generally act as a camera operator or an editor. They live in the rigid house and help him out with his videos, whilst also appearing in the videos to help themselves grow. It's a simple enough model, how even with my small amount of research, it's shown that there are nearly constant issues with this, and also nearly constant complaints against Jesse by these people, that I would even struggle to call employees at this point. One of the largest being a man named Corn, who had been Jesse's cameraman for a while, but publicly had a falling out with Jesse, making allegations he was being treated more as a slave than a cameraman, and it wasn't being paid very much. This led to 2 videos being released by Corn, which Jesse rebuted, stating that Corn had plenty of time off, but there were some very busy periods, but he was also paid well over minimum wage for his time, but Corn was just being a very demanding person, not being very passionate about the work, and then barely doing any work once he got a girlfriend due to his growing internet fame. The whole drama is a wee bit lame, especially since Corn later came back to work for Jesse again, so the drama kind of blew over and then everyone made up again, which does seem to be a recurring theme. Even as Emily had previously stated she had fallen out with Jesse and returned several times to work for him. In the DMs that Devin dropped, Shallow seemed to have left the house suddenly due to issues with Jesse. Jesse felt betrayed by this and comes across as entirely egotistical, talking about how he allowed him to do videos with him and his dad, gave him opportunities, even put him on as a lead in some videos. It's a very one-sided exchange though, so there is very little to know about what Shallow's part, but it does make reference to Jesse being annoyed about trying to fuck with Storyfire. But Jesse does come across as being someone who seems to feel that you owe him loyalty just because he gave you a platform and attention. It's very much a big fish, small pond syndrome, as people seem to flock to the legendary creator McJuggerNuggets, both because they were fans of his, but also because they were envious of his position and wanted to become YouTube celebrities themselves. Yes, remember, this all started with him saying Jeffrey Sachs, I mean Dahmer, in a 2-second clip out of an hour and 40-minute long baking stream where he was in the background. Devin also had more issues though, complaining about Jesse publicly calling out people who were competing in the editor competition for being late on their work, which is a bit unfair and a bit harsh at times. However, it is still a job application. Devin complains that it's free fucking labour and he's lucky that they're editing any of it anyway, seemingly missing the point entirely that it is a competition to get a job, so they will then eventually be paid. He does, however, tag a creator called Underrated Creator, who was part of the competition to advise him not to work for Jesse. He continued to post about Jesse both on Twitter and on Reddit, saying people who are still fans of Jesse are brain dead because he's transphobic, narcissistic, and a sociopathic piece of shit. It didn't take long after the podcast though for him to suddenly delete all of his evidence as well, posting up his own final statement to back up Shallow, complaining that Jesse won yet again, for some reason believing Jesse to be a masterclass manipulator, and struggling to acknowledge that a dog pile with generally thin evidence isn't really a great dog pile, as his entire contribution to the drama was a few tweets where Jesse was upset someone had bailed on a job without telling him and then tried to take down his own website. Jesse freaking out looks very bad for Jesse, but in no way is it a kill shot. At least his caps lock was working though, so 5 stars. Whilst Devin did also continue to see on Twitter, he made sure to go to the McJuggerNuggets subreddit as well to complain about how he's being made to look like the bad guy. It's a really weird mentality, deleting all the evidence you believe is strong enough to take down a 4 million subscriber YouTuber account, but you're unhappy because you aren't being taken seriously enough and you're not getting enough ass pats. It just seems like a weird opinion to have in this massive campaign that you're launching. It feels like a lot of sour grapes that you're valiantly standing up to someone you actually believe is a sociopathic, transphobic, evil person, but you aren't willing to stand up to them for more than 24 hours before deleting all your content. But now it's time for my sour grapes though, because as a man of diligence and learning, I decided to sit down and listen to a brand new podcast that Devin had started right after this drama had ended. And for his first guest on, he invited on a man called Downcast Spark, who's yet another small, struggling YouTube content creator who idolized Jesse and wanted it. Okay, look, every time I introduce someone into this shit show, it'll now just be quicker for me to say if they aren't a struggling YouTuber trying to be the next Jesse, okay? Downcast originally posted a video in regards to the drama, which was mainly him just complaining about how Jesse is a big content creator who isn't particularly nice to small content creators, whilst also showing his hand a wee bit early, saying, well, since we are calling out Jesse for being a piece of shit, I got some things I want to get off my chest. And then drops his issues in a Twitter thread, with all the force of like a feather duster, as his first point is that Jesse had once said on a live stream that he had come on to his small podcast called the YTFA podcast, but on a follow-up email, he didn't get back to Downcast. Whilst it isn't a justification for flaking, the YTF podcast generally gets around 100 views if I'm being generous. So yeah, it isn't nice, but it certainly wouldn't be my number one point on my takedown list. The second point was that during a time when Jesse was talking about rejoining Storyfire, possibly as a bit, possibly for real, like I said, who fucking knows with Jesse, Downcast came out and said that he shouldn't because he had caused enough damage to the community. Jesse then shit all over Downcast for saying that he shouldn't go on the site that he apparently built and invested $3 million into, and some of Jesse's fans then went and bullied Downcast for it. And yeah, that's about it. He pats himself on the back for being a 6-year veteran in content creation, and also that he had heard from a third party that Jesse wasn't a good person, so it's likely that Emily might be right. Also slipping in that he had previously wanted to be Jesse's cameraman and editor. Do you see what I mean when I say about the struggling YouTubers who are all obsessed with Jesse? He even brought his grievances up to the Keemstar Show in a super chat.
Downcast Spark, $5, not gonna lie. McJuggerNuggets treats small creators like myself like trash to be ghosting us after agreeing to be on the podcast. It's just bad. Oh, boo-hoo, Downcast Spark.
At least they read his name out correctly, unlike for some people.
We got one more donation.
The Darnish with the $5 Irish potatoes went from pure scuff to pure kino. Great show, absolutely. Let's
you know
get
why we
into
did
the
this show
members.
tonight?
And it's about this time when I noticed Devin and Shallow tweeting each other, and then Downcast getting involved. This was a spider web of weirdos who are all interconnected, all friends with each other, who all are fuming on Twitter right now because their internet daddy didn't love them enough to make them famous. Devin and Shallow were friends who had left Storyfire on bad terms due to the crypto scam drama. Downcast was one of the people who had attempted to contact Shallow about this, which caused Shallow to immediately block him, which then led Devin and Downcast to start arguing about the scam because Devin refused to provide any evidence of the scam, stating that he was under an NDA, also that it might not be a crime, also that he wasn't sure if it was actually being done or not, also he wasn't sure if it was happening overseas or not. Downcast, however, then on the 30th of January 2020, went on his fucking YTFA podcast, when he cried about Jesse not going on, and ranted about their crazy conspiracy theory of the crypto thing, and then gloating that this led Shallow to being cancelled for speaking out against Storyfire. And then, ironically, he states that he was cancelled for speaking out against Jesse in May 2022 for returning to Storyfire. And now him, Shallow, and Devin are all ranting about being cancelled and having to delete all their own fucking evidence. It's like a Shakespearean tragedy by the way this all falls together in the end. But, in tragedy, love blooms, and despite the rocky fallout earlier this year, Downcast and Devin, however, have bonded over this, and as I mentioned, Downcast appeared on Devin's new podcast. Due to this coming out on the 8th of October, I listened to the whole fucking thing to say they talked about the drama. And no. The only reference to Jesse was them twice saying that guy or that person and refusing to name him, and also refusing to really say what they're alluding to. These two tiny snippets were sprinkled between long stretches of them very violently sucking each other off, saying how they both think they're going to be 10 million subscriber YouTuber accounts and they're going to do what that guy didn't and rebuild YouTube as a strong community, and how they're basically the next Markiplier, and now both of them love Storyfire. You know, the site Devin accused of basically being a criminal enterprise run by offshore terrorists or some shit. They fucking earned the thumbs down. And just like with any attempted Twitter campaign, we got the hashtag FJR, which I assume stood for fuck Jesse Ridgway, but it got very little traction. Probably because people like me had to say, I assume it stood for fuck Jesse Ridgway. It only took one solid scroll before I was looking at a fucking motorcycle picture, so I don't fucking know. We also got the other standard of Twitter campaigns, anon accounts set up to shit on the person in question, usually used to dump info. Well, we got Cancel McJuggerNuggets, whose entire thing was basically just spamming at Jesse and his family members until he got blocked, and then claiming that as some kind of success. They were generally just weird during the whole thing, but they did shine on two separate occasions. With the first one being during the initial fallout as fans and haters clashed on Twitter, they did this bizarre back and forth where they were telling an LGBT fan of Jesse's that he shouldn't support Jesse because he's LGBT and Jesse is obviously a transphobe. Then jumping back and forth with someone called Grey Witch as well, who referred to them as their partner. The random fan pulled out some weird fake DMs about dick sizes, and then the Grey Witch's person's entire Twitter history suddenly appeared, and it was all like male dirty feet domination pics. It was a really weird side tangent I kind of got lost in for a little while. The second actually ties back to Emily's original complaint against Jesse, where the promo that he had set up was apparently transphobic because it used masculine imagery off her. One of the editors involved in the editor competition, Dominic Maisto, came forward and stated that he was actually the one who created that promotional footage and generally came out in support for Jesse. This then led the Cancel McJuggerNuggets account to go digging through his past, find a post by his insane ex-girlfriend, and then try to make out an allegation that Dom was abusive towards her. This led Dom and another of the creators in the competition, Underrated Creator, and even the girlfriend to then come forward with statements and videos to try and argue that Dom actually wasn't abusive and that this was all a misunderstanding because the ex apparently just repeatedly posts drama bait texts about exes online. Like, I think the entire situation was so cringe that even the Cancel McJuggerNuggets account literally stopped fucking posting afterwards. The parade of losers continues though, as a person called Gabe Kanau also came forward stating that they had stepped away from Jesse's fanbase due to both homophobia and racism directed at them, which apparently also came from Jesse's friends. Once again, they claim to have never spoken about this before. They outline how worthless they felt after being attacked by anonymous fans of Jesse's, but also alluded to there being certain quote-unquote bigger people behind the scenes saying things too, but of course not providing any further details. Gabe's general reaction to the drama was small and quite odd, telling Jesse all the footage of Emily before her transitioning should be immediately retired when he found out about the transition, which probably have led to Jesse deleting tens of millions of views from his account, when even Emily herself still has her Jeff Saxton vlogs and Swift on her account. Gabe reacted negatively to the entire drama being done and dusted, using it as an example of why transphobia and homophobia still thrives, and then immediately shills their book, which was their journal during the most traumatic time of their life, and I fucking hope it was not this. More grievances were publicly aired as a man called Double Pulse rushed out to complain that Jesse had once said he'd meet some fans after a convention in 2019 at VidCon, but didn't show up. My Vlog Journey was upset that when he had tried to provide criticism to Jesse once, he'd been attacked by Jesse's fans. Unhappy though that Jesse would somehow allow people to attack him, especially stating that he has a mental illness, and then he quit Storyfire because of this being trolled. Justin Dark came forward, upset a childhood hero had betrayed him, but mainly seemed to want to also complain about Wafflepone, which seems to be another fake YouTube rage channel. He connected this to so many cameramen quitting over the years and, well, no shit. And this is really getting to be the thing. Jesse is a person with a reputation for explosive breakups with his cameraman, but there's always a line of young, eager fanboys waiting in line to get to be friends with Jesse and usually trying to promote their own channels. Like, guys, what were you expecting after, like, the 7th shit show? Nearly everyone involved is somehow a jilted lover, with another potential cameraman called Bushido Calvillier accusing Jesse of stealing, buckle up for this, stealing his ideas for a fucking magical Mirror Man storyline where glowing rocks are used. So guys, we're at the part of the story here where it's just fucking randos coming out with basically nothing to say apart from that they were loosely connected to Jesse in some ways and didn't like him. Such as Jescario Flips, who's like a part of the Storyfire group. To Reverse Josh, a guy who's part of Ridge's house and left recently, but is still clickbaiting about Jesse as recently as 2 weeks ago. Grexkun coming in to call it transphobia in him calling Emily Swift still, however, Emily said people could still call her Swift. Yeah, people like J.K. who pretty much ran between every single detractor just to rant randomly about Jesse was their childhood hero and kind of ruined everything. It's going on to make dozens of posts on Reddit and videos complaining about how cruel and mean Jesse is and how people should just be nice to each other. You've also got a guy called Toto's Funtime Studio on YouTube who makes a compilation of some of the drama and then sits down in front of the camera at the end to, like, randomly say he went to acting school and Jesse is mean. It is bizarre.
Because McJuggerNuggets is a... I keep forgetting what the word is. It's a person that hates transgender people and stuff. Yeah. If you're one of those people, please unsubscribe. I'm sorry, but I do not support those people. And if McJuggerNuggets wants to be an actor and a filmmaker, that's not a way how to get into Hollywood. Jesse, McJuggerNuggets, if you're watching this, I was in acting class, in Chuck Williams' master acting class, and he taught me a few things or two. We do not do things in Hollywood, and apologize, that's all I'm going to say.
Out of this entire shit show, my favourite tweet probably is from one of Emily's fans trying to threaten one of Jesse's fans with arrest for misgendering Emily. I haven't even mentioned the Reddit yet, where our opinion is basically entirely negative against Jesse, with often the same people from Twitter just appearing to rant and whine about Jesse in various threads, from Devin to Jade to a guy called Brad Heat, who seemed to have been heavily involved in drama with Nick earlier on in it, based on a public fallout when the subreddit was swarmed with infighting after him getting kicked out of the Rigid House. During one of his Reddit back and forths, we once again get him stating that he isn't going to leak information of what he knows, but he does know a lot. The general response was that people like Brad were doing this for clout because they were making a lot of big allegations, but providing no specific information. All of them saying that they know stuff, but it's not their place to say, and they're waiting for someone else to say it because it's their story to tell. And I can't disagree with the general assessment. There is so much of that in the story with people saying, I've heard things, or yes, I've heard bad things. However, it's not my place to say them, which is a kind of lame way to approach drama in my opinion. The Redditors also tried to create a mega thread, which was akin to Boogie298's mega thread on the old Sam and Tulky subreddit, hoping to store and catalogue all of the information on the drama. I quickly, however, realised that this was generally useless, and in a few minutes I had already gathered more information than pretty much the full subreddit, which admittedly did seem to be pretty dead as the same names popped up repeatedly in all the different threads. Very soon, most of the links were dead as people deleted tweets and retreated from the drama. The general evidence being put forward by hardcore fans of the series were that Jesse was often a control freak for videos or with his girlfriends, such as one of his previous girlfriends, Gillette Riley, who released an amazingly cringe video in 2020 where she claimed that Jesse had changed, saying he capitalized off her by making clickbait videos when they broke up. That's about it. That's it. This coming years after their breakup, it just kind of awkwardly slides into the growing pile of evidence here that it's just people who are bitter years after something happened and seem to be using a large YouTuber's name for clout, with her even coming forward to publicly support Emily during this whole thing. A lot of the content on Reddit, though, is nuclear-grade copium, with people often posting long goodbye messages to the others, people arguing that they've thought this for years but didn't want to accept it, people decrying everyone for deleting their evidence and backing down from the good fight. Some people did bring up actual points and evidence, though, but most of it never really got any form of attention and didn't really get brought up by the big players or anyone with enough clout who could have actually shone a spotlight on it. So it was basically just pointless as people gave evidence to what was 3 or 4 other people that kind of bounced back and forth and all echo-chambered. Jesse's support structure really isn't a lot better, with his main support either coming from brain-dead, overly thirsty girls, or people who are currently still or trying to be in his employment, or also his close family, who are, well, kind of under his employment too, I guess. Parents and relatives generally came out to back him up, saying that they weren't interested in drama and they thought a lot of this was for views, and then someone from the hate brigade would go into a wee bit of a freak out in their comment section, or we'd have people like MS Vlog Creations roll in, trying to convince everyone to just be friends again because he's so obsessed with the videos he wants them to be friends so they can collaborate together again. He did have sparse support on Reddit, however generally they got dogpiled then and just ended up deleting their own comments. One of the most vocal detractors though, and one of the first people to post in the hashtag FJR hashtag, was Nick Rugenus, who's also one of the two randos who provided a soundbite to Keemstar. Nick is the man heavily referenced in the drama on Reddit with seemingly an equal number of haters as supporters. He had been very vocal online with his support for Emily, saying that he had witnessed it firsthand. However, again, not specifying what it was in his tweets, but did say that Emily had been treated poorly during the filming of My Virtual Escape, which was one of Jesse's largest products, which Jesse even admitted himself was very stressful to all involved. Nick's reaction to Jesse's non-apology tweet was explosive to say the least, as he went on live on Instagram for about 25 minutes straight where he just ranted, where he came off entirely unhinged and actively heard his own points repeatedly. He stamped back and forth throughout his mobile home, which he ranted he had to live in because Jesse had fired him and kicked him out of Ridgway house. Like many people in this drama, he said he worked for Jesse for about 2 years despite it being literal torture, how he was paid very little, forced to basically be a slave, and that he hated Jesse and Jesse had been mean and cruel to him and everyone else the entire time. I'm assuming it's his room temperature IQ, but he made sure to also include this.
This dude, literally, like I said, when I got hired, I told him never to treat me the way Swift has been treated, because it will not work out. And you know why I said that? Because Swift was treated like shit.
He had already heard about all the negative experiences before joining as cameraman, but for some reason then stayed for 2 years, and only after being fired he suddenly decided to come out hard against Jesse. He also complained about McJuggerNuggets making a blackface video apparently many years ago, saying this made Jesse a clear and obvious racist, which does look bad when you then compare it to this clip of Nick.
Do you remember me? What? Do you remember me? I saw you at TwitchCon or something? No. Yesterday? Shit. Oh, are you the Ryan? Are you the Nick guy? Nick guy? Yeah, no, wait. Whoa!
Nick outlines that Jesse often said terrible things about his old cameraman, and often said a lot worse things in private than he would in public about them. He of course doesn't state what any of these things were, and of course, knowing this, he still worked for Jesse for 2 years. He ends the video by arguing that Jesse owed him money for rent paid, for work done to the house, and also to make up for him being unemployed, which happened because Jesse fired him, which I'm pretty sure that's not how that works, champ. He also states that Jesse had warned him at the start of this that it was going to be a very hard job and often got a lot harder when it came to money and YouTube views. Nick, however, entirely disagreed with this, saying that if he wanted views, he wouldn't have been in Jesse's videos, which doesn't really make sense since a lot of his channel is dedicated to Jesse, just like about 95% of the creators involved in this overall drama, so it's very hard to believe he wasn't there using Jesse for clout. Even Jesse himself in the Keemstar Show said all these people backing Emily are just doing so because they're unhappy he pushed them out of his circle. Jesse called him out in response to this, making the same allegation he made on the podcast that Nick had stolen thousands of dollars from him, and this was all clout chasing from people who are often just as negative about Emily as possible. Nick quickly deleted all of his content regarding the drama after this. It's not hard to buy Jesse's opinion though, as his 25-minute video comes across as an angry rant out of spite and generally jealousy a lot of the time, where Emily is barely even mentioned compared to his own personal grievances with Jesse that mainly seem to be based on their messy breakup, where him, Miggs, and Tippy were all kicked out of the Rigid house too early. Miguel, or MigzFilms, was the second rando who had given a clip to Keemstar. This clip was posted to Nick's channel, which isn't really a great look when you have people like Salvo pointing out that this does seem to be an organised hate campaign. This especially kind of backed up because nearly everyone involved used the same 3 examples when they weren't saying vague statements like, I've been told things, or I've heard things. Miggs, however, is an interesting example because he made a tweet right at the start of this drama saying, I told you so, referencing several tweets he had made nearly a year ago, which was shortly after he'd been kicked out of the Rigid house. He openly accused Jesse of being transphobic back then, and that Jesse's live reaction to Emily's coming out video was fake, and Jesse had known for a long time at that point. People, however, didn't believe him, and at least one person reached out to Jesse, KidbehindaCamera and Boogie for confirmation of these allegations of transphobia in December 2021. Unsurprisingly, there was no response. It appears, however, that this didn't gain traction, mainly with people saying Miggs was just unhappy that he'd been kicked out of the Rigid house, so they wrote off his opinion entirely. Miggs, however, did confirm in these tweets that he had told Emily outright that Jesse's being negative about her transition behind her back, and what confuses me is why she still continues to blindly be his sidekick after it all. He is pushed down and ignored by Reddit and Twitter though, and when he went on to Emily's stream he was also blocked by Emily when he tried to give the information. I don't have access to that stream, so I don't know what exactly he said or how he was saying it, but it does take away from Emily's continued shock and surprise about this whole incident when she clearly was aware of it for quite some time and actively blocked people trying to call it out. Now, I've mentioned this person, Tippy, a few times by this point, and it doesn't seem like he weighed in this situation whatsoever. However, let's just say he's problematic to this entire ordeal. Tippy is known as Daddy Chill, or also as Tiffany, appearing in such videos as Hiring a Transgender as My Secretary, where Tippy plays a transgender called Tiffany who is obsessed with trying to sexually assault Jesse. This is a recurring character in the series for years until the fallout in 2021, and it's so weird that this character, who's pretty much there to be a punchline of a joke for years, is a sexually charged, large black man in a wig doing a lady voice and a creepy transgender trying to molest Jesse, and it's barely even mentioned in regards to this drama outside maybe one fucking post on Reddit. Obviously, Jesse's entire shtick is to have outlandish characters for comedy's sake, but it just seems like this would be such an easy target to point at if you're trying to paint him as a transphobe. It's like, it just feels to be a really easy one to say he's making fun of transgenders. However, no one actually brought this up. It is, however, weird that Miggs, the guy who is most vocal about how he's a transphobe, probably appears in the Tiffany videos more than anyone and generally seems to be having a good time, including having Tiffany on his own channel. Tiffany's most famous clip would probably be this one.
I won it! You're trespassing on my property! You didn't win shit in my yard! Wait. All of you!
Daddy, chill.
What the hell is even that?
And here we are again at the biggest problem. What is real with Jesse? He's come forward a dozen times to say that he's being genuine or real, but then it'll just end up being a storyline, such as fallouts with the family, or even with the Psycho series, where he kept arguing with fans that they were real, genuine videos that were documenting his family life, until, of course, he murdered his father in the series, and then finally came out to confirm it was fake. He's a guy whose content will flip-flop dramatically all over the place, with one video being about transgenders trying to molest him, to the next one being like, lol, isn't my brother gay, to the next one where his dad is fighting the mafia, to him stealing an ice cream cone, and even him making a video that was a tribute to Frank Hassel. His circle of friends are all the same though, with some murder videos thrown in, videos about actual crimes happening to them, joining in on dark jokes such as Michael KidbehindaCamera, who joined in the whole mom joke thing, which is kind of weird because it does seem unnecessary for the skit, and is very deliberately targeting a transgender person, which is why I say, no one has come into this fight with clean hands, and it's funny to watch them all try and throw jabs at each other when the same thing can often be said back to them.
Good advice across the board, and don't judge him. He's what is it? It's ma'am!
Excuse me, it's ma'am!
It's ma'am! It's ma'am!
Ma'am! Once again, ma'am!
It's ma'am! Ooh!
Tippy barely, however, was involved in the drama whatsoever, not even seeming to comment on it, which I'm going to assume is because he's a fairly large, successful YouTuber. This whole situation reminds me of a lolcoy called Ethan Ralph, who is a lolcoy I made a video on previously, and if you don't know who he is, he's a far-right guy. The whole joke around him pretty much is that he falls out with everyone. He constantly is having drama and screaming matches with people. It's his whole bit. On his podcast, he is the main host, and he goes through, I don't know, dozens of co-hosts, because he'll keep bringing on co-hosts who will then act super loyal to him and suck his dick and pretty much just go along with anything he said, usually shitting on the previous co-host who had just been fired over some tiny grievance. Then they will be fired. They will then try and create a YouTube career by shitting on Ethan Ralph, who's one of the biggest lolcoys, and generally be saying, oh well, I'd heard about all these things and I just went along with it, but I really wish I hadn't and I really wish I stood up to him. And it's exactly the same as this McJuggerNuggets situation, with all of his old cameramen being like, oh well, I knew about all this stuff, however, then I stayed with him for 2 years, even if he was abusive and tortured me the entire time, which doesn't make any fucking sense. So, where are we now with this drama? Well, Jesse's still uploading content, and the tweets are pretty much all supportive nowadays. No one really brings up the drama even. His Reddit is still an entire shit show, people either trying to cope or raging, but the rate is a lot slower than it used to be. Michael has moved on fully from the drama, has gone back to liking butthole pictures of e-thoughts. Keem and Salvo went on to the next drama of arguing if Salvo had been fired or not, and oh yeah, Boogie. You guys ready to go for another 30 minutes? I already fucking hate this video. Let's go. You may have noticed that one of the big names on the Keemstar Show wasn't invited to participate. Boogie2988, who is the perpetual third wheel, spent most of his time on Twitter seething away as the podcast went on. He keeps repeating the same points over and over again, possibly for the third time tweeting about keeping her name out of his mouth, which I think it's probably not a good thing to say because that implies that Emily's name is still Jeffrey Saxton instead of saying keep her dead name out of your mouth. But claiming Jesse can't leave people alone despite this seemingly being the first contact in months as part of a 3-second clip. Boogie then also claimed that he wasn't willing to go onto the call, even though no one invited him, and he wasn't even really mentioned again on the podcast outside of both Salvo and Jesse mocking him for being fake. And he also tweeted this out about the time that the podcast was ending, so I don't know, it just seems like, well, I didn't want to be invited anyway. During the live stream, Boogie was very clearly upset, so he was looking back through the details of the drama again, and this is where he found Dom's tweet, where Dom was confirming that he was the one who actually edited the footage. Boogie then asked him to not misgender Emily again in the future, despite Dom never once misgendering Emily. Boogie's tweets slowly started to become less coherent at times, with this being about 3 AM where he's still arguing with people online, and he has to use text-to-speech because his fingers are too fat for the phone keyboard. He complains that Jesse hadn't come to him to fix their friendship and didn't put any effort into it. Now, at this point I should probably outline the backstory between these two. They were good friends for years, collaborating a lot together, however suddenly they fell out. The exact timescale is not exactly clear since Jesse had not previously spoken about it much, and Boogie's standard operating system for mentioning it was to change the story repeatedly. Due to this, the fans were generally left in the dark as to why the friendship had ended, and when it also had ended, with Boogie however at the beginning of 2022 advising that him and Jesse had made up, but they weren't probably going to collaborate again together, but they were still close. At around 4 AM on the 6th of October, hours after the podcast had ended, Boogie decided to post his final word on the matter. During this, he claims that Jesse wasn't a good friend towards the end of their friendship, and they haven't been friends for years. And then states that Jesse had thrown him out on the street at 3 AM, 20 miles from the nearest town, and it was Emily who took him to a hotel, and he will now be her friend for life because of this. Seemingly, if a taxi driver had picked him up, he'd be the taxi driver's friend for life, I guess, as well. This does just seem weird though, especially with Boogie and Jesse both saying that Jesse was there for Boogie's divorce, his teeth surgery, his internet meltdowns, and Boogie also previously cited as being the reason he didn't kill himself in 2019. When Boogie woke up at 3 PM, he did keep his word though, by immediately starting to argue with basically everyone in the comments section, but thanks to this tantrum we did get a little bit more information on the party, as Boogie tweeted this. I flew out to a party he invited me to. I was exhausted and acting somewhat obnoxious. His father decided to go off on me after also going off on Grimm's toy show, and Jesse's told me to leave his property. Now that's a fairly different story than just saying Jesse randomly threw you out of his house from a party. Boogie also couldn't help himself though from responding to Jesse's final word on the matter. Boogie once again, for potentially the 6th time now, saying leave her name out of your mouth, and that he should leave Emily alone, making sure also to point out that Jesse had also hurt him, but also making sure to doubly point out that he genuinely doesn't care. Boogie then goes back to arguing with total randos though, using one of his other favourite quotes of how Jesse was punching down, something Boogie likes to claim about basically anyone who ever criticises him. Boogie clearly festered away on this behind the scenes because he later went on to make a video about it, trying to answer Jesse's points to pretty much say he wasn't trying to cancel Jesse, he doesn't like cancel culture because he himself was also cancelled. Now, firstly that didn't actually happen to Boogie, but the irony of the situation is pretty fucking great. Jesse's calling out Boogie and all of these people for trying to cancel him because suddenly once there's one issue, a lot of spurned people all run in to try and dogpile him, which is undeniably what happened. Boogie claims it's not what's actually happening, and it's just him being held responsible for what he said. Boogie, on the other hand, shot a gun in a school zone after inviting a troll to his house, opening the front door to him, approaching him, and then shooting the gun to try and scare him away, so people rightfully criticise Boogie. Boogie in this situation does not consider what is happening to Jesse, as dozens of people try to brigade him to be cancellation, but obviously thinks what he did, an actual crime that he should be held responsible for, was people trying to cancel him off the internet. And for the second point, Boogie fully supports deplatforming, actively celebrating Alex Jones and recently Andrew Tate being deplatformed, and also his take on the Quantum TV Ackman situation recently was to say that whilst it shouldn't have happened, kind of does set a precedent and it probably should happen to more people now, and he hopes that it happens to like people harassing him in Wings of Redemption. Boogie also then goes on to say this.
Could I join this dog pile? Yes. Do I have personal grievances with Jesse? A dozen. Do I have shit that I haven't said publicly that I could say here and add to it? Absolutely. Am I going to? No. Am I going to make this about me? No.
Once again, a very tone-deaf statement, as Boogie joins the horde in claiming that there are hidden, dark secrets, but he won't mention them. claiming he could also join the dog pile if he wanted, as Boogie at this current time in the story is literally like the only person still actively engaging in this drama online. By this point, Emily had stopped, Jesse had put out his final statement, most of the small content creators and KidbehindaCamera had all deleted their tweets to do with it and moved on. Boogie instead is continuing to tweet about it, waiting for another about 30 or so minutes before posting yet another video response about it. The video is 19 seconds long, and it's Boogie pretty much spending the first 15 seconds saying how this is not about him, but how he is still very angry, and how Jesse has wronged him so many times and he could easily dogpile him with all his extra information if he wanted to, but he isn't going to, and spends the last 4 seconds saying this entire thing is about Emily. It is fucking great. Because Boogie keeps engaging, people start to get curious about what all this extra dark, shady stuff is that Boogie keeps suggesting exists. Of course, Boogie then is incredibly vague. If someone comes at him with a reason, he'll say, yes, that is one of the reasons, however, I also have private reasons. An equal number of fans start to call him out, though, for tweeting so much about it, and Boogie doubles down that he can do whatever he wants on his Twitter, and with literally no personal reflection or a realization of the crushing irony, tells one of the people, I'm sorry if you don't have the strength to not look at it, lol. As the hours roll by and he continues to engage randos on Twitter about a beef that has already ended like a day ago at this point. Finally, after hours of tweeting and a couple dozen tweets, Jesse finally makes a response video to Boogie, which is exactly what Boogie wanted.
I always just sit here and bite my tongue, but this is Boogie2988's like 15th tweet now about the Emily Saxton stuff, which he's completely irrelevant to. But when you just tweet that much, clearly you're asking for something, and it's not about the real issue at hand. This is referencing my earlier tweet. People are weaponizing this issue because they have personal problems with me. What are those personal problems? Well, Boogie's alluded to it, but of course, like, tries to make him seem like the white knight here, holier than thou. We all know you've had your foot in your mouth more times than we can count. I've always been there for you. I was there with you with your fucking divorce, with your weight loss, with your teeth surgery, all the internet trying to cancel you, the amount of collaborations we've did, me going out of my way to see you, to see how you're doing for so many years. And I've always been one of your biggest supporters, even when everyone else didn't have your back. When you were about to get canceled or suicidal, I was there. And so for this little stupid thing, you're going to come at me and do fucking 20 tweets, some personal shit, right? So I had a Halloween party in which Grim and Boogie were invited to. Grim's like, hey, can I bring my girlfriend? Yeah, sure. Mind you, this is my first time about to meet Grim's Toy Show, another creator. Grim instead brings 2 prostitutes. At the party, these prostitutes start asking everyone for cocaine, asking my Aunt Jackie, asking relatives, asking younger adults. Super embarrassing. They get super sloshed. And then the girls start fingering themselves at the party. They bloody up my carpet, absolutely ruined it. The stains are still back there. And then we had to kick them out. My dad told me, hey, they're getting out of hand. My dad said, hey, Grim, leave. And Grim says he's going to put my dad through a table because he drunkenly thought we were filming a bit, which is ridiculous. So we kicked them out. Boogie was also filming the prostitutes. And my dad was pissed at Boogie for the disrespect, as was I. And my dad makes a comment to Boogie, and Boogie says, fuck you, Jeff, to my own father. My dad freaked out on him, said some shit, and then I was like, yo, Boog, you can't fucking stay here, bro. And then Swift took Boogie to a hotel, and I didn't see Boogie at all. That's what they're fucking pissed about. So the fact they're trying to use this shit canceling, it's all bullshit. I've only ever been good to you. I'm fucking pissed.
Cue the fucking meltdown, with Boogie immediately posting a video in response where he is literally so angry, he is visibly red in the face and literally breathless, where he starts trying to claim,
I tried to have this conversation privately. You've chosen to take it publicly. You know what? I'm not going to play along. Here's what I have to say to you. It's the same thing I said to you privately. It's the same thing I've had to say to you this whole time. Leave Emily alone. Apologize to her for dead naming her. Apologize for making jokes at her expense, apologizing for attacking and punching down to a fragile person, and stop doing it. That's all I have to say. You want to talk about it privately? We'll talk about our shit there. Otherwise, fuck off.
And Boogie, of course, employs the standard strategy of rewriting history as he claims that he had been trying to deal with it privately, you know, despite him tweeting over 20 times about the situation that everyone else had moved on about, and making about 3 separate videos on it. This is the exact same shit that happened between him and Ethan Klein, and him and Mudahar, and him from Charlie from the Critical Podcast, Boogie will poke the bear repeatedly. He'll poke it over and over and over again, screaming and flailing his arms on Twitter, making as big a scene as possible until he finally gets a response, and then he will be horrified someone would dare talk about him in such a negative way publicly, accusing them of bullying him, accusing them of punching down at him. This is what Boogie does all the time. That's why everyone says he's a crybaby. Boogie obviously couldn't just leave it at one rage video, so of course he had to rush across to Jesse's own tweet to randomly accuse him of making the situation worse, despite Boogie having sent like 20 tweets at this point, alluding to dark, shady stuff that is so awful it will change your mind to McJuggerNuggets. He also then says Emily's going to back him up on this whole thing, and spoiler, Emily refused to take any part in this and did not engage whatsoever. He also said that he had evidence that would show that he was not filming any girls, and that he had also never said anything to Jesse's dad, nor would he ever say anything negative to Jesse's dad. An hour later, after even more arguing with randos online, Boogie decides to finally post his final word on the drama. How he had hoped that they could be friends again, but he guesses they can't now. You know, despite the numerous previous tweets saying how he didn't believe they would ever talk again. The video is just amazing.
I wrote Jesse privately this morning, and by now you've seen his response, public response to me. And I want to respond to it here and then leave it at this. I know it'd probably be good for my YouTube channel to make a YouTube video about it, and I'm not promising I won't. But as of right now, this is what I want to do. I just want to say that I involved myself in this situation because Emily asked me to be there for her, and I chose to be. And I see nothing wrong with that. She was there for me when I needed her, and I was there for her when she needed me, and that's as simple as that. As for what Jesse said in his video, I'm always going to appreciate what you did for me, Jesse. And I'll always love you for it. But the last thing you did for me was really shitty, and it hurt a lot, and we've never made it up. We've never fixed it. And I've kept most of that secret, and you know what? I've decided I'm going to today, even though you slandered me in your Twitter video. Like, you realize I have video evidence that I was not filming those girls, but you said I was. But I have Grimm's footage from that night that shows Grimm was filming it, and I was sitting there awkwardly on the other side of the room with a dozen people between us. You say that I'm the one who told your dad to go fuck himself, old man. That was Grimm, and the video footage also shows that. You know better. And you're slandering me, and I have every right now to respond on my YouTube channel, and it would probably be good for my dead career. And I'm not going to do it. Instead, I'm going to continue to love and protect you the way I always fucking have, how you failed to do for me that night. This was never meant to be about me, and I'm sorry that it ended up being that way in any way. It was meant to be about protecting Emily. It's all I ever wanted to do. Anyway, as always, guys, thanks for watching. I love you very much, and I will speak with you again soon.
Immediately trying to claim that he had tried to do this privately with Jesse, and for some reason, Jesse just decided to do this publicly instead. This is why a lot of people aren't sure anymore if Boogie is just a really dedicated manipulator and narcissist, so much so that he will say things that are provably untrue, or if he is genuinely delusional. He also says that he took part because Emily asked him to, which adds even more weight to the argument that this was a deliberate dogpile orchestrated by Emily for clout, especially when Keem had argued that he had organised the sound bites, so it couldn't have been possible for him to set up between themselves. However, clearly they knew they were getting involved if Emily asked him to get involved. He claimed that no matter what all Jesse had done to him, none of it mattered because Jesse threw him out of a party. That he had video evidence of him not swearing at Jesse's dad, and how he had video evidence of him not filming at any point. This was him done though. He was done, guys. That was the last word. There's a lot of deep sighs and dramatic stares off into the distance, and him talking about how he's so nice a person he still won't go after Jesse despite how awful Jesse has been to him, to call him out in public and slander him. You know, despite the one message Jesse's made against the 30 now that Boogie's made. You know, but still. Well, buckle up, because only a few minutes later, Boogie posted up a screenshot of him sitting in a chair, claiming this was pure evidence, apparently, that he's telling the truth and that Jesse was lying, claiming that he was miserable and awkward during the whole encounter. And of course, a single still shot of a video proves literally nothing, so this wasn't accepted as clear evidence by the randos of Twitter that Boogie was, for some reason, desperately trying to convince he was right. So instead, he dropped a 1-minute video.
Ain't no party like a McJuggerNuggets party, and the McJuggerNuggets party don't stop.
I just want to let the folks on Storyfire know that Khalees has got a great pussy. And I just saw it, and I think it's fantastic.
Well, listen,
A+.
Listen, and Boogie, I want you to get it.
I'm excited to die alone at this point, Grim.
Okay.
Like, I think the internet rumor thinks I like bang hookers and shit.
Right.
I'm just ready to die alone, man. Fuck
Yeah,
it.
I'm the same way.
Right? Like,
I'm done. Like, I'm good.
Like, even if she was willing to climb Mount Boogie right now,
right?
I fucking don't want to ever see this shit. Look at this. I look like a fucking melted snowman in this net, man. It's bad.
But you don't understand. You couldn't leave the house, and now you're outside the house. You're partying. Them teeth.
What a stellar video to upload as your evidence. A video of you sitting exactly opposite of these two hookers, staring across the room at them, and then immediately you start ranting about the internet being mean to you and how it's crazy that they think that you bang hookers. All this time later, this statement is especially funny though, especially since at the start of this month, Boogie admitted to spending over $100,000 on sugar babies, which, to anyone unaware, it is just another word for a prostitute. It's only a young, attractive girl that you give monthly allowances to and buy lots of stuff for so they'll date you. It's a prostitute. It's a prostitute. It's like a quote-unquote prostitute. Now, the idea that Boogie is uncomfortable being in the room with two hookers is amazing, especially because later on he went on to admit that he paid two half-sisters to have sex with him at the same time. One of Boogie's biggest controversies I didn't even mention earlier on is when a sugar baby called Lucy Fox came out and said that Boogie was abusive to her. Now, this is a girl that Boogie had originally introduced as being his super hot 20-year-old girlfriend, but since she came out with that, he suddenly changed the description as being a hooker that I barely even know who is blackmailing me. Boogie would go on to confirm that this video was only a part of a full 8-minute video, which is definitive proof that he was never filming and that it was Grim doing everything. Boogie claims, however, that he wishes this would be over, and it would only be over if Jesse decides it's over because he hates it so much and he wants it to end, but at the same time he needs to prove him wrong, and also how much he hates it. It's all over the place. A reminder, Jesse has not said anything in hours at this point. He made one single response to Boogie's 20 tweets and 2 videos. This video didn't help Boogie at all though, as more and more people continued to jump on him telling him that he wasn't helping himself, that it was not actually proving anything, that it looked bad for really only him, and that now he was releasing footage of 2 hookers potentially without their permission to try and win a Twitter argument. Boogie wouldn't stop doubling down though that he was uncomfortable in the whole situation and hated it because, I don't know, he's scared of hookers? He weirdly mentions he has zero attraction to the 2 women, which is probably the only believable thing he actually said because those women looked like they were at least 20 years old or more, which really isn't Boogie's type. A lot more people began to call him out to post the full thing, pretty much telling him now he looked bad and to prove himself right, he had to upload it. As the pressure built on Boogie to hurry up and post the video, Boogie suddenly began to backpedal hard, claiming that he can't upload the full video because there are lots of people on the film who might not consent to being on film. Remember that for later. Boogie then tries to blame Jesse for the whole hooker situation in a really weird way, pretty much just saying that Jesse had ample opportunity to ask them to leave before this happened. So Boogie, is ample opportunity longer than 8 minutes? Because if those girls were in the house any longer than 8 minutes, then your 8-minute video clip actually isn't evidence of literally anything. Boogie then went back to Jesse again, sending him the 1-minute clip directly as proof, and blaming Grim for everything again. As he gets called out for backpedaling, he claims that his beef didn't matter and he was being consistent on his only point, that this is only about Emily, as we are now posting videos of hookers on Twitter and filming rage videos. Boogie then uploads a new video.
Because of that old fuck, fuck you!
That's weird, Boogie. I thought you were against showing footage because you thought the people included in the footage might not want to be shown, because you just showed 9 people in that 4-second clip. Also, once again, this just raised suspicion with a lot of people because it was a totally out of context 4-second clip out of apparently 7 minutes of unreleased footage, so it really didn't actually clear Boogie in any way. Boogie, however, acts shocked and appalled that Jesse would confuse him with Grim as well, and I'll show you Grim in a minute. He is a fat, bearded guy. Like, I get it. If I'm being honest, I get it, Jesse. Also, Boogie argued that he was in the same room as the hookers because he had travelled that day, so he was tired, and despite how incredibly uncomfortable and awkward he was and how much he hated the whole situation, he just couldn't get up and go and sit outside on the porch, on the sofa, or any of the other seats. No, he had to sit there and directly stare right up the girls' butthole as they finger each other, which obviously makes sense to me. The fighting with randos continued, where he was mainly denying any relationship with Grim whatsoever, which is weird because Grim would also tweet and say that him and Boogie are friends. Hours later, Boogie finally uploaded, "Fuck it, done." Boogie then deleted all of his tweets and videos, and then released his final video.
Now that I've had a chance to calm down, I deleted all this stuff about Jesse and that night and everything else. He can talk about it if he wants to. I just don't want to, man. I just want it to be over. For 3 years, I've lived under the shadow of that night where he thinks I invited Grim, I didn't invite Grim. He thinks I invited the girls, I didn't invite the girls. He thinks I was filming the girls, I didn't film the girls. He thinks I told his dad to go fuck himself, I didn't do that. And I have literal video proof, and I've provided it to him, and he knows the reality, he knows the truth, and for whatever reason, he goes with the narrative instead, and I don't know why, but I don't care anymore. I don't care anymore. Just let it be. Fuck it.
So, despite all of this, Jesse's video specifically said that Jesse had invited Grim to the party and that Grim had invited the hookers. Jesse never once during this multiple hour, 50 tweet long, 5 video long meltdown, responded in any way, firstly. I think that's a good start. But he also never claimed that Boogie was doing what Boogie is claiming that he said he did. I know that might have been confusing. Try living it in the moment. Boogie also seems to totally misunderstand what he has told many different stories means. Oh yeah, and rest assured, he is still continuing to argue with randos even after posting that "fuck it, I'm done." Boogie thinks telling different stories is saying one story with 3 parts, listing that he claimed Boogie invited the girls, which he didn't, that Boogie also filmed the girls, and that Boogie told his dad to fuck off. If Jesse had told many different stories, the claims would be more like, Boogie invited Grim and brought hookers. Well, actually, Grim invited Boogie and brought hookers. Actually, none of them were invited, and they invaded my house with a hooker army. Boogie then goes on to tweet Jesse again, however this time apologising for even getting involved in the Emily stuff, and that he's sorry that he holds this garage, because obviously he's winged at this point, and then saying how hurt he is because he got thrown out of a party. Who hasn't? People don't leave Irish parties, they get thrown out until there's just one guy left. That's how parties are meant to end, Boogie. And of course, he kept going, arguing with just random people, saying how he just wants this to be over and other people can keep going on about it, but he's stepping out, he's stepping back, he's done with it. As literally, and I do mean literally, the only person still tweeting about this at this point. That is no exaggeration. When I gathered evidence for this entire shit show, I ended up with something like 50 screenshots from just Boogie, with like 7 separate videos as well. For the main party of random nobodies, Jesse, Kid Behind the Camera, Emily, Keem, Salvo, I had maybe 120 screenshots for all of them combined. Boogie was like a third of my fucking content for this entire video based on contribution. And of course, because he kept fucking digging, eventually he got bombarded with evidence, so much so that Boogie has to change the goalposts. The evidence was on the 17th of January 2022. Boogie uploaded a video titled, "What Happened with Boogie 2988 and McJuggerNuggets?"
I got there a little loopy, a little tired, a little out of it, and I was being my usual Twitch self where I'm telling like goofy and gross jokes all night. So I think that rubbed Psycho Dad the wrong way for sure. I go upstairs to take a nap, and when I come back down, there's another content creator there by the name of Grim, I think from Grim's Toy Show, and he brought a couple of strippers. I mean, that's what they were. They were professional strippers, and they were there dressed in very provocative costumes, and they were walking around the party propositioning people and talking about pretty outlandish stuff, but it was a party, and it was a Storyfire party as well. This content was going on Storyfire, which is a no-holds-barred platform, so things got a little awkward and wild. At one point, these 2 girls are like in the floor, shaking their booties, having a good time, and I'm in the room paying attention because I'm a guy, but I'm also like feeling awkward and looking at my phone because there's a bunch of people around us, right? And in comes Psycho Dad, pretty much in character, and just angry and mad and screaming, "What ails you?" And he's mad at these girls for being so provocative, and they ask Grim and the 2 girls to leave, and it's just, it's awkward and uncomfortable for everyone there. And I thought it was a bit. I did. Grim handed me his phone and said, "Film this," and I thought it was a Storyfire bit. Made perfect sense. Turns out it was not a bit. They were just not happy that these girls were doing what they were doing. I think Psycho Dad was upset that I didn't kick the girls out or stop them from like twerking or whatever, but I've never understood that because it's not my house. He said, I'm the adult there. I'm the adult in the situation. I shouldn't be watching that kind of behavior. I should be discouraging that kind of behavior. But again, Grin was filming it, right? I thought it was a bit. I thought it was an approved bit for Storyfire. That's what I thought we were putting on Storyfire. I thought we were putting ass shaking on Storyfire. That's the entire point of the platform, I thought. I immediately apologized to Psycho Dad for filming it because I thought it was a bit, made sure he understood it wasn't on my phone, it was on Grimm's phone. Everything seemed okay, and then later that night, we're filming at like 3 o'clock in the morning, everybody's exhausted and tired, and I made an off-color joke to Psycho Dad, and Psycho Dad, putting it very politely here, basically told me to leave.
Boogie's story from January lines up so much with Jesse's that it is fucking insane. From him filming for Grimm, to him making an off-color, what Boogie describes as a joke to Jesse's father, to him sitting there and watching the hookers because he's a guy. Boogie gives his telltale facial expressions he always does when he's lying, acting like he's confused with the entire situation, when he's literally sitting in the room as the only guy apart from Grimm, admitting to staring at the girls, talking about their pussies, and then getting in trouble with Jesse's dad. He even admits that after this first blow up, he then causes the second one, which leads him to then being kicked out of the house, when online he makes it sound like he was the one just getting kicked out with Grimm at the start. And yes, it's after all this evidence started to be dropped that he finally decided to delete all his fucking tweets once and undeniably he's been caught in a lie. And yes, don't worry, Boogie tweeted about it again on the 7th to someone who was criticising his attitude and behaviour through the whole thing, where he immediately deflects it and claims he was only standing up for Emily. And yeah, that's how the drama died, with Boogie so inadequately trying to stand up against transphobia that he made the drama about himself, carried it on much longer than anyone cared, where he ended up debating the finer points of how long he may have looked at and filmed hookers for instead of what he claimed was important, transphobia. Admittedly, Boogie really isn't the guy I'd ask to stand up for transgender folk, as he frequently shows his actual opinion on transgender people, such as in these clips.
And secondly, could you imagine being threatened by a dude in a dress? Could you imagine having, like, your entire worldview crumble because a dude put on a dress? You're like, oh God, no, Jesus, oh, look, Jeremy's got a dress on! Like, can you fucking imagine? I'll treat you as male. You tell me you're gender fluid, I'll use different pronouns on any given day. It doesn't bother me, doesn't offend me. I'm not so thin-skinned that it bothers me having to change my pronouns. So I will humor you.
Oh yeah, and also Grimm's Toy Show also decided to release a video during this whole Boogie exchange. It's him claiming he was also on the phone call that Jesse had with Michael that night. No one else has ever mentioned this, and Grimm just seems drunk and or low IQ, so really, I'm only mentioning this for posterity's sake. I don't believe him. He sounds like a fucking idiot who's just trying to get involved. This drama was fascinating to watch unfold in real time, seeing name after name pop up with YouTube accounts connected to their profiles, leading to a lot of small channels which all pretty much mimic Jesse's content, or downright were just trying to be connected to him in some way, as they all list off these vague grievances, all claiming to have a lot of dirt but not willing to share it right at this second because it's not their dirt to share. As people all rallied around a character whose internet personality does seem to be primarily clout-chasing, from their very first videos even to their newest. Centered on a guy who, like, no shit, he's an asshole. I've never watched a single of his videos prior to this shit show, and I could have accurately told you, each and every one of you, how big an asshole he is, how he would have acted in real life, and what kind of jokes he'd be telling. How often people would be revealed in this drama to be doing exactly what they're saying they hated. How many people in this had unnecessary egos or clear jealousy, from people like KidbehindaCamera happily taking part in skits that nowadays would be seen as very transphobic, and then crying on camera for being accidentally transphobic, to Nick screaming about racism and backing up Miguel's racism claims, but then randomly says the N-word to fans at meetups as a joke. I obviously got initially invested in this because Boogie was involved very loosely, but once he made the entire thing about himself, even, as he repeatedly screamed that he wasn't doing that, it just became golden. It's one of my highlight moments of Boogie's career as a lolcow now. And I guess the final point I really should make is, do I think Jesse is transphobic, homophobic, racist, all that malarkey? Who knows? That's the thing I brought up several times. Who knows with Jesse? I think he's an asshole in real life, certainly. He's definitely an abusive person who has an ego, likely he's narcissistic, and he does treat people like shit. But does he treat people like shit because they're transgender, Mexican, or gay? Well, there's plenty of straight white dudes in this that he's fucked over just as bad, if not worse than Emily, so probably not. He's probably just an irredeemable piece of shit who wanted to be a famous millionaire, got there, got high on his own success, and then just decided to watch it all slip away whilst flailing and raging at everyone. You know, kind of like someone else we know. Well, except the millionaire part. And that's the video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it. I put a lot of work into this one for once because, you know, I was so used to being a low-effort IQ guy myself, I decided, fuck it, I'm going to actually try for something for once. I also would like to give a wee shout-out to my patrons, Haley, Eswank, and Samuel P., who are all donating on my Patreon account. Thank you so much. Your money is definitely going to go towards alcohol to get me over this nonsense. So, hope you enjoy the video, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.